Queria convidar para subir ao palco primeiro o Sanjay Purohit, que é... Boa tarde, Sanjay. Onde você... Sanjay é CEO e curador do Centro for Exponential de Mudanças Exponenciais. Ele é indiano, autor, pai, parceiro e pesquisador. Thank you for being here. Queria convidar a subir o palco agora o Nishant Shah. O Nishant é indiano, feminista, humanista, tecnólogo, trabalhando com culturas digitais. Ele é professor, coordenador e pesquisador na Universidade de Hong Kong, também nos Estados Unidos e em Nova Delhi. E eu queria concluir o nosso painel chamando a Nina Santos para o palco. Nina é soteropolitana, é professora e pesquisadora, atualmente dirige o Alafia Lab e é coordenadora geral do Desinformante e é também uma amiga, devo dizer para vocês. Acho que, como eu disse para vocês, é um privilégio para a gente ter vocês três para a gente falar de um tema que é tão importante na atualidade. Pela perspectiva de vocês, pela trajetória de vocês, e também pela visão que vocês trazem para o campo, seja do ponto de vista da formulação, né, desse encontro entre tecnologia e filantropia, seja pela incidência que vocês têm no campo, então pensando a regulação, pensando o impacto nas comunidades, seja no desenho e execução de projetos que juntam, né, que são capazes de unir esse mundo da justiça social, do desenvolvimento social com a tecnologia. E eu queria começar um pouco... Então, eu queria entender de vocês como a filantropia se posiciona nesses dois espectros, como é que a gente pensa isso, né, entre essas duas possibilidades. E vou começar com você, Sanjay.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think today morning there was an interesting reflection about past, present, and future. And I would like to start with that because I think if you go back and look at the evolution of us as civilizations, in the beginning, we all learned to move as people, go across different parts of the world, move across the continents, and eventually we learned how to move material. As time progressed, we learned how to move energy, right? And that's why the whole revolution around energy. And then we said, oh, now we are entering the information age, and now we have learned how to move information. I believe it's important for us to focus what's the next big move. And if we think about moving information and focusing on intelligence, we would probably get it wrong. The question is, can we move human consciousness? Can we all become alive to ourselves, to our being, to us being a part of the planet? And I think that's an interesting challenge for the world ahead, that are we going to move the consciousness of everyone on this planet to improve everyone's lives, to take care of the planet, and so on and so forth. My 15 years of exploration has been around similar questions. For example, what does it take to restore the dignity of people, to restore the agency of people, to improve their ability and their confidence in making the choices that matter in their lives? And technology has and should be playing its role, not the only role, its role in moving in that direction. We use the word exponential very often, which obviously, as the mathematician Alan Bartlett had said, that the biggest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential. So today, if we look at our climate crisis, inequity, democracy, healthcare, education, these are all, interestingly, all exponential movements. These challenges multiply over time. But our response and our answer to them are very linear. We try to do things and then do more of the things, and we approach everything as a sequence of things that we can do linearly. So the question is, will AI provide that platform, that ability to do things exponentially? Because it is an exponential technology. right? So those are the kind of questions that we probably need to be debating. And the best way to learn exponential is to learn from Mother Nature. You know, rainforests have an exponential characteristic. When birds go into murmurations, that's an exponential behavior. The corals are exponential in nature. Why is it that we think about all the problems and its solutions in a very linear fashion? In the journey over the last many years, and now over the last 5 in the intersection with AI, some important questions have emerged. Classically, we use technology to make something that is scarce. We try to make it abundant. So if good teachers are scarce, can we use technology to make better teachers? If good healthcare professionals are scarce, can we use technology to make them abundant? But I think we should ask a question, what is abundant? And how do we make it effective? People, their agency, their dignity is something that we have to really amplify using technology, right? And what is scarce should become irrelevant. That's a very different paradigm. We also question, how will technology make everything uniform, right? Because everybody will do the same thing, everybody will have the same capability. But I don't think this world is a world that should be made uniform ever. It should be unified. So what's the role of technology in unifying us? What's the role of AI in unifying us? And of course, lastly, the question is that we see diversity as a challenge. Oh, we have so many diverse people, so many diverse backgrounds. How do we deal with this? This is such a complex problem. But I think diversity is our strength. And the role of any evolution, any technology is to promote diversity, is to create more diversity, is to create more possibilities and options rather than limit them and box them into a small set. So coming to the topic of AI in this background of thinking, one of the things that we have been working with is that today the mindset of AI is we need lots of data, and then we need these models, and then we need these frameworks, and we need different forms of technology. And so he said, oh, it's a bright idea to suck in the internet and see whether we can create intelligence out of all the knowledge that has been collected. But our deep realization, I come from a country of 1.4 billion people. Probably the internet does not know anything about 1+ billion people out of the 1.4 billion people, because these are not the people that the internet is knowledgeable about. So we said, okay, internet is a lot of data, but voice of the people is bigger data. Every individual's voice is so powerful. Their aspirations, their thinking, their requirements, their skills, their competencies, their knowledge, their wisdom. And why don't we look at the capability of AI to work with the voice of the people? So that is the area that we've been working in, trying to understand that society decided to fragment us. So I was a human, and then the government thinks I'm a citizen, the business thinks I'm a consumer, the doctor thinks I'm a patient, and so on and so forth. The teacher thinks I'm a student. So my identity gets fragmented. And as it gets more and more and more broken into pieces, people who are using different kinds of technologies and AI, etc., look at me from different sides. We said, why don't we turn the picture and saying, the AI should be built using your voice, because it's complete. Because you are complete. And so we've been working on this idea of saying human voice, voice of people, and not voice of collectives, but voice of individuals across millions of people. How do you build AI that works in support of those voices? So that's the journey we are on, understanding how do you move from voice to wisdom, from voice to impact, from voice to connections, from voice to transactions, rather than thinking that now that GPT or some such technology knows everything, let's ask it a question, it will give me an answer, etc., etc. Vis-a-vis saying, I don't think it knows anything. But now we have sorted out some of the possible technological models by which we can make sense of what people really aspire for, what people really try to do. So that's the journey as a backdrop, and the whole intention is that how do we ensure that we make people whole again by using technology so that we can meet their needs where they are, in their context, in their situation, and make AI work for everyone, for millions of farmers in India, for hundreds of thousands of healthcare professionals, for people in the communities. And that is the real question that we need to debate, rather than the question of, oh, AI is doing such fancy things, it can write a better exam than some of the students. And I think that's distracting. The real question is, what is it that we need to do to bring our people back together again? So I would like to begin with that.
Muito interessante essa perspectiva, porque eu acho que nos ajuda, inclusive, a sair de uma visão muito tecnocêntrica da ideia de inteligência artificial e entender que os desafios que a gente precisa pensar são, na verdade, desafios sociais, para os quais, eventualmente, a inteligência artificial pode ser útil ou não. Então, acho que é uma boa maneira de olhar para isso. Acho que o grande desafio é não gastar um pouco mais de uma década que a gente gastou no dilema sobre as plataformas digitais, se as plataformas digitais iam fazer com que os povos oprimidos se libertassem e derrubassem as ditaduras, que era um pouco o estado de espírito dos anos 2010, 2012, 2013. E 10 anos depois, ou um pouco menos, a gente está quase no extremo oposto de achar que as redes sociais vão acabar com a democracia, que o WhatsApp é o fim da democracia. E agora, quem sabe, vamos conseguir avançar um pouco mais para uma síntese e uma compreensão do que a gente precisa de fato para fazer com que essas plataformas digitais funcionem. Acho que a gente tem a chance, com a inteligência artificial, de começar com uma outra pergunta, que é uma pergunta sobre qual é o lugar que a gente quer que a inteligência artificial tenha nas nossas sociedades e nos processos de transformação social. E aí, acho que eu preciso compartilhar um pouco que eu olho muito para a inteligência artificial a partir do meu campo de estudo e de trabalho, que é o campo da comunicação, o campo de combate à desinformação, o campo de promoção da informação de qualidade, que eu acho que não faz sentido pensar o combate à desinformação sem a sua contraparte, que é a informação de qualidade, o campo da busca por soluções regulatórias para esses novos ambientes comunicacionais e novos ambientes sociais, e da discussão da chamada integridade da informação, que é um novo termo guarda-chuva que vem sendo usado nesse ambiente. Então, é a partir um pouco desses debates que eu olho para a questão da inteligência artificial. E me parece, aí pegando o título da mesa, né, tecnologia para transformar. Muito bem, para transformar o quê? Né? Quais são os desafios que estão colocados, que a gente precisa transformar e que, eventualmente, a inteligência artificial pode ser parte dessa transformação? Me parece que tem vários, né, inúmeros, mas eu citaria 3 aqui, especialmente relacionados ao próprio ambiente digital, que dizem respeito ao nosso ambiente social atual. O desafio da polarização e da radicalização. Me parece que esse é um desafio central a ser enfrentado, que diz respeito a todas as nossas democracias. O desafio dos discursos nocivos, que é um desafio que já está muito presente no debate sobre as plataformas digitais, está muito presente no debate sobre racismo, sobre misoginia, sobre LGBTfobia, na nossa sociedade em geral, inclusive, entre muitas aspas, não digital. E um debate sobre a promoção da informação de qualidade, a ocupação desse espaço digital, dessa sociedade digital, pela informação de qualidade. Acho que esses são 3 desafios para os quais a gente precisa de transformações, se a gente quer que a sociedade que existe na era digital seja uma sociedade democrática. Só que, para lidar com esses 3 desafios, que já não são pequenos, me parece que tem uma questão de fundo que a gente precisa enfrentar, que é uma questão da retomada do interesse público como horizonte de construção desse espaço social. O digital é um espaço social. É nele em que vai se integrar também a questão da inteligência artificial. E o interesse público, em muitos espaços, deixou de ser o horizonte justamente porque grande parte desses espaços funciona sob outras lógicas que não a lógica do interesse público. Então, pensar o interesse público como horizonte para as regras que regem o nosso debate público hoje, para as regras, para as políticas de inovação que são extremamente necessárias, pensar o interesse público como horizonte para a construção de soberania, que me parece que também é um outro elemento essencial para a gente pensar esse mundo digital no qual a inteligência artificial vai se somar, se sobrepor ou trazer uma nova camada. E aí, nesse contexto, eu acho que faz muito sentido a gente tentar pensar uma agenda para a transformação social na era da inteligência artificial. Não uma agenda para a transformação social que será feita através da inteligência artificial necessariamente, mas entendendo que a inteligência artificial fará parte da nossa sociedade, será parte da nossa realidade, e que a gente precisa entender qual é o lugar que essa inteligência artificial pode ter na promoção, na potencialização, na formação de processos exponenciais para a transformação social. Acho que é preciso acoplar essa ideia de exponencialidade ao propósito. E o propósito que, para mim, é muito caro nessa agenda é o propósito da transformação social. E aí, para terminar essa primeira rodada, eu queria só sugerir alguns pontos que eu acho que a gente poderia, a partir dos quais a gente poderia pensar essa agenda, né? Eu acho que tem que ser uma agenda que nos economize essa década ou um pouco mais das discussões sobre plataformas digitais e que já parta de uma compreensão de que a IA não é neutra e nem é técnica, como oposição à política, mas que também parta da ideia, fuja da ideia da IA como a demonização, como o fim dos tempos, e busque justamente qual é esse lugar no qual a inteligência artificial pode fazer sentido para a transformação. Uma agenda que olhe para a inteligência artificial como uma tecnologia integrada a outras tecnologias e a outros espaços. Não faz sentido pensar a inteligência artificial longe da discussão sobre plataformas digitais, por exemplo. Uma agenda que pense em inteligência artificial, o impacto que ela vai ter nos hábitos informacionais das pessoas. Hoje, a gente reclama muito das lógicas algorítmicas do engajamento, do que é que gera a lógica de engajamento das plataformas. E eu acho que a inteligência artificial tem potencial de mudar isso. Mas mudar isso para quê? O que a gente quer construir com essa nova lógica da inteligência artificial? E, por fim, uma agenda que observe os usos de IA fortemente baseados em contextos locais e no combate a desigualdades. Eu acho que essa é uma necessidade. A gente tem visto com as plataformas digitais o quanto esse fenômeno é global, mas o quanto ele atinge de maneira muito desigual as diferentes partes do planeta e das sociedades. Então, eu acho que esse olhar localizado, direcionado sobre a questão da inteligência artificial também é um ponto essencial para a gente pensar nessa questão.
Obrigada, Nina. Nishant, please.
I think it's a really interesting set of conversations which have already started. I really like, or I'm actually very intrigued by the fact that whenever we talk about emerging technologies, and it's important to recognize AI as an emerging technology, we seem to trap it between binaries of different kinds, right? Will it save the world? Will it kill us all? Is it about scarcity or abundance? Is it about whatever? It's about diversity and unlocking the potentials. It's about uniformalization and diversity. I think I want to introduce another binary to the question, which is about care and harm. Right? So I'm not taking I don't want to spend time talking about what AI is. I can do it, but for that you will have to come to my class, sit with me for 14 weeks, and at the end of it I will tell you we don't know, and it's not important. But what is important is how we talk about AI, right? And I want to introduce, first of all, the idea that all of us who are in this room are being forced, as Sanjay, I think, very nicely puts it, to wear granular identities. Some are philanthropists, some are activists, some are change makers, some are researchers. All of you are care makers. And I really want to say that if you want to talk intelligently and meaningfully about artificial intelligence, let's begin by talking about care. What are the kinds of care practices which AI amplifies, but also AI requires us to pay attention to? And I specifically want to focus on care because that's the only way I can think of still doing something in this world. I work a lot on technology-facilitated gender and sexual violence, which means that I spend about 6 hours a day looking at the most depraved things that we as a species do to our own people. And at the end of the day, I go back home every day and saying, why do I still want to do something? And the only answer that makes sense is care. And so I'm going to say, let's think about AI and the relationship with care and what it can do to our futures. And in doing that, I really hope that we might still be able to think through hope. Because as Eve Sedgwick, who's a wonderful feminist philosopher of affect, had once said, despair is the privilege of those who can afford it. I can't, and the people I work for can't, right? And hence care, hope, and artificial intelligence. One of the primary problems in thinking about AI and care is that we keep on reducing AI to a tool. It's a device, it's a platform, it's an algorithm, it's an application, it's an implementation, it's a model, it's tools that you use. Even though I have a limited time, I want you to do a small thought exercise with me. In front of you are pens and papers, right? I'm going to give you 20 seconds to draw something which is not touched by technology, right? It's a wonderful challenge. Draw something that is not touched by technology. And maybe we can play music for 20 seconds? All right. I know this is a tough challenge. But now I want you to give your paper to the person next to you. Like switch your papers. And then try and figure out why this thing is still touched by technology. Somebody imagine that whatever they have drawn is not touched by technology. Your job is to figure out why it is still touched by technology. If you have done this, you have made a huge leap now because you have made a distinction between technological objects and objects that are touched by technology. AI is not a tool. It is the context within which our lives are lived, and it is a condition that shapes the meaning of our lives. And in a lot of solution-driven, implementation-driven, innovation-driven discourses, we keep on thinking of AI as a tool, whereas the challenges that we have with AI are as a level of context and condition. What are the kinds of meanings that AI will bring to our life? And what are the kinds of conditions that we are going to have to deal with? And if you accept this leap of faith with me, that we stop thinking about AI as a tool, I want to present a very small summary of research we have been doing for the last 8 years, 2016, tracking policies at global, regional, and national levels, focusing specifically on the global south, thinkings, particularly through technology-facilitated gender and sexual violence, there are 4 trends that philanthropy organizations, governments, and corporates have all been implementing as ways of providing care to those who are harmed by AI. I'm almost ready to do a roll call and saying I'm going to name one and tell me if you have done this. If you think that this is a way by which care can be produced in conditions of harm of AI. The first one is regulation. We all keep on thinking that technology is good, its implementation is bad. All we need to do is have better governance, better policy, better rule, better regulation, better accountability, and then this technology will become good. That's the first trend. The second trend is oversight. Everybody who's been dealing with international security and digitization has been familiar now with how Meta has created its oversight board. And we think that if enough human people are put into responsible positions where they can detect the problems of AI, we will solve the problems of AI. I'm not going to go into great details of where things are. So second one is oversight. The third is mitigation, right? If you are affected by artificial intelligence, this should not be a surprise to this room. I don't need to give you statistics. Let's take it for granted. If you are a woman, if you are a queer person, if you are a migrant, if you are an indigenous person, and if you are working with AI, you are being harmed by it. You might have privileges that do not make you realize that you are being harmed by it, but you are being harmed by it, period. And when mitigation steps in, what we say is that the people who are harmed by these things should do the work of mitigating with the technologies that are harming them, right? And the fourth one is transparency, which is the Silicon Valley holy grail. We do evil, but we are very transparent about how we do evil, right? We can show you exactly how the decisions were made which are responsible for genocides and extinction of species and of people, and we will be very transparent about how we do it. Now, if all of us in the room are complicit and we have given our faith that one of these things is going to work when thinking about AI and harm, I'm telling you now that it's not working. It's okay to admit that it is not working. And the reason why it's not working is not because what we have been doing is wrong, but because we keep on thinking that AI is an old technology. It's not. It is an emerging technology with emerging harms, which means that every time, especially with civil society actors, you think you have reached a solution, you have done a global compact of 5 years working with 80 countries signing a bill, the targets have moved so far away that everything we do is a chasing game, which is performative. In Sanjay's wonderful phrase yesterday, it's important, but not sufficient. And we will have to start figuring out what is going to be sufficient to think through these conditions of harm when it comes to AI. Now, I have 2 suggestions for it, and I'm going to wrap it there, and I'm not going to expand on it, but I do want to bring it up later. One, we need to stop thinking that we know what AI is, and that should be a huge sense of relief to everyone. I work with computer scientists who work with some of the biggest corporations in the world, and they don't know what AI is either. In that case, we will need to develop a new vocabulary to understand what AI is, and my first challenge to all of you is to stop using the word AI. It doesn't mean anything. It is a series of components which are very technical in nature, with a social protocol which then decides how it's going to be implemented. So the next time somebody comes and says, we are doing AI, stop them and saying, what exactly do you mean? Because nobody does AI. If anything, AI does you. All right? And then the second intervention I'm suggesting is that we need to stop the literalist framework, which is geared entirely around questions of data and evidence and models. We seem to have forgotten that this is not the language of how human knowledge operates. Data, evidence, and models are languages that AI likes. Technologies love these frameworks, and we seem to adopt them for ourselves. And if we move beyond these 2, we might be able to start thinking about how to produce care in the face of AI.
And I would like to ask you, from your experience with the Center for Exponential Change, how to put technology at service of people. What's your experience there? How to make something that is actually serving people and give some agency to people who are being served by technology. It makes me wonder also that usually when we talk about technology and tech development, we are talking about massive investments when it comes to money. So this is what we hear all the time. So for you to develop a simple thing and you have the huge centers and you have this, so does philanthropy have this kind of capital to actually develop tech? Do you think it's something, or does it need to establish different kinds of partnerships? And finally, considering your experience at the center as well, are there any trade-offs between scale and innovation, or these two concepts work together? And
Thank
by
you.
that, I also would like you to share with us a little bit more of the experience of the center.
All right. So, firstly, for the longest time in the field of development, the phrase used by social entrepreneurs, change leaders, philanthropists was, how do we reach the last mile? I think of late, and I'm happy to note, and it should be more, we should change that to the first mile. That's not the last mile, it's the first mile, right? That's where change originates from. That's where the need originates from. So if I was to put myself in the shoes of anybody in the community, which is very risky because honestly I'm incompetent to do it, but understand life from the perspective, say, of a farmer or of a micro-entrepreneur or of a woman trying to make a living and so on and so forth, what is it that they are challenged by? Building on what Nishant mentioned, care. What do they care about? That's the question. And that's what we've been trying to understand. What do they care about? For example, as we were meeting many farmers in one of the states of India, in Tamil Nadu, what we understood was that they don't want to interact with any form of technology by writing into it, because they don't know how to write. They don't feel good about writing. And we said, that's an interesting question. Why do they need to write? I think we have reached a point where they just need to speak, and that should be enough. Why should the response come back to them in a written form? It can come in a spoken form, in their language, in their way, in their context. I think we've reached that level of understanding and the ability to manipulate technology to be able to deal with that question. And we did that. We said, you just need to pick up your phone, and you're comfortable with WhatsApp? So, yeah, we are comfortable, but don't write into it. Just talk into it. And ask a question that is plaguing you, right? And let the answer come back to you in your language, the answer to the question that is plaguing you, which could be about seeds, some infestation, price of a certain crop in the market, or whether it is anything. I want to know, how is my community doing when it comes to turmeric farming this quarter, right? It's as simple as that. But to be able to give that answer, then we have to work in the background to make that answer feasible. And the only way to make that answer feasible is to listen to all the farmers, right? And so what we are trying to do is to understand, what do they care about? They care about saying, I need money, right? I'm headed for a very difficult harvesting season. I need money. Is there a government scheme that can get me money? I don't know. And I don't know whom to ask. Can I ask something and I get an answer saying, yes, you can do it, but I don't know how to apply for that? Can I ask for help saying, can you please apply for these? These are my, and can the system actually do that? Today it's possible. And so that has been an interesting journey in looking at it, saying, what is the question of the farmer? When there's this extreme heat wave, what are their questions? When there is a flood, what are their questions? And there are infinite combinations of questions. These are not standardized forms or filled and known questions. These are actually unknown questions. When they will arise, in what situation, at what point in time. And I think we should be in a good position. And I think I like the phrase that we should stop using the word artificial intelligence. But the point is we should be able to manipulate technology to get that answer to that farmer, to that health worker, saying, I'm seeing this patient, I'm seeing these kind of symptoms, what should I do? Right? And I want to ask that in a language which is not even written. There is no script for that language. It is only spoken. Now what? I'm sure like in India, in Brazil, you would have languages which are not written. They're only spoken. Right? So now what? Can we deal with it today? Yes, we can deal with it today. It is possible. But if we approach it from the point of view of what does that farmer care about? What does that, somebody who's working in the forest and living off the landscapes, what do they care about? And answer those questions. The second question is that the wisdom of our, and if you look up the definition of wisdom, one of the definitions of wisdom is that what is the collective, cumulative understanding of the culture and how is it applied in the current context. So who has wisdom? The communities have wisdom. We think we have wisdom because we've done some research and done some science and done some statistics and produced papers. I don't think so. I think the wisdom is with the people. But the question is, how do you learn from that wisdom? How do they learn from that wisdom? I'll give you a very simple example. This whole question on misinformation, disinformation. We worked with an organization called India Development Review, which is the India's Development Review journal, similar to the Stanford Social Innovation Review, but it deals with all the complexity of India. And we said, you are responsible journalists because they have done some fantastic work on really pulling out some of the authentic issues that are there. We said, why don't we create the ability to actually interact with this knowledge of the last decade, right? Today it's possible. We can manipulate technology to interact with that knowledge rather than go into generic hallucinations of meta models of what is being talked about. We built it today. If you, even now, while you are sitting here, you can log into something called IDR Answers, and you can interact with the wisdom of those thousands of journalists who actually have curated phenomenal stories and understanding from across the Indian communities as to what's going on in Hindi, which is the Indian language, and English. It's possible today. So it's possible for us to create purposeful systems which solve problems of the communities that we care about in the context of what they care about and what they really want to do. It is feasible today. And so I think I have always believed that in the development efforts, all of us in this room and many who are not here, we missed the potential of leveraging when internet came into being as to how could we do things differently in time. So we lost the arc. These are exponential technologies. If you lose the arc, like they say, if you misdirect the plane by a degree on the west coast, you will land in a different city on the east coast. So if you miss that arc, then we land in a different place. Then came all the mobile revolution. We missed that arc. This is the time when we cannot miss this arc. We have to put it in the right direction now. What does that mean? Every philanthropist, every development sector professional should understand how to ensure the communities they care about are serviced by all the latest developments in technology. We are not going to wait for anyone. We're going to make it happen now, because if we don't make it happen, it will bend the arc in the direction which you don't want to bend it. Because in the end, the arc is a function of experiences of people. If they see it going in that direction, it will go in that direction. Our job is to ensure that it actually serves the needs of the people, right? So that's what I would love to. And so philanthropist's job in this area, in the recent book by Ethan Malik, he said that you should assume that the AI that you use today is the worst AI. The AI that you use today is the worst AI, because it's only going to improve increasingly in its capabilities. If that be the question, then what's the role of philanthropist? The role of philanthropist is to spark a revolution of innovations, of understanding people's cares and using technology to try and answer those questions. What do people really struggle with? What are their... So for example, I'll give you the example of, India has a huge issue with literacy and numeracy of children. They read the third standard and they're still not able to read. And we said, what do people really care about? That child is struggling to read, Every responsible adult around the child is struggling to see how to make this child read, because we know that if the arc is bent with low literacy and numeracy, this is going to be a 75-year disaster, because it's just going to bend the life out of shape. We said, okay, can we manipulate technologies to actually help the child learn how to read? So I'll give you an example. Tamil is a language which has about 200 syllables. And when we took an assessment of a child who should have been reading, we realized that they only can read 7 syllables. And why is it that they are not able to read? Interestingly, our finding was because they're surrounded by extremely judgmental and high-pressure adults. Every time the child tries to read, they say, oh, you can't read this? Come on, stand in the corner, this, that. So much of pressure, right? So we said, okay, we'll give you a friendly interface. You will get a paragraph and a headphone, and you read the paragraph. Now today we have the ability to manipulate technology and saying, these are the 7 syllables you get, these are the 10 you don't get. Give you the next piece of reading, the next piece of reading, the next piece of reading. No judgment. No judgment, no marks, no green stars, red stars, 6 on 10, 7 on 5, none of that. Just keep on interacting, keep on talking. 7 hours of reading, the child was reading 44 syllables instead of 7, after 7 hours. It is possible today to deeply understand what do people really want, what are the deep cares, and see how we can manipulate technologies to meet that care. Philanthropist's role is to promote more and more and more experiments, more and more possibilities, more and more options, rather than saying, okay, can you use AI to give me the impact? Then probably you got it wrong. Can you use the AI to see whether such and such care can be solved? Or I would not even use the word AI. Can you use the most recent developments in technology to answer that question? Then we are on to something. And that is the real question, rather than anything else. So I would submit that for all of your consideration.
Qual é o desafio também entre você regular e perder a oportunidade de inovação? A gente, quando está discutindo regulação de inteligência artificial no Brasil, encara esse dilema também. Então, o que está, de fato, nas nossas mãos?
Bom, que bom que eu tenho 40 minutos de aula para debater. Mas acho que são questões cruciais para a gente pensar o nosso tempo. Eu acho que essa questão dos hábitos informacionais, de como as pessoas se informam hoje, é absolutamente central para o futuro das nossas democracias. A gente fala muito da questão da polarização, e eu acho que tem um elemento dessa polarização que é muito relevante, mas menos explorado, que é o que a gente pode chamar de polarização informativa, que é um pouco fruto desse novo cenário digital, em que a gente tem uma multiplicação das fontes de informação, a gente tem uma quantidade muito maior de pessoas que é capaz de se expressar e de publicar no ambiente digital, o que, evidentemente, não significa que o poder de fala seja um poder de escuta, não necessariamente elas são ouvidas, mas a gente tem uma multiplicação do poder de publicação, uma multiplicação das vozes que estão incluídas nesse debate público. Então, se a gente lembrar o debate sobre comunicação na década de 90, ou primeira década dos anos 2000, tinha um debate muito grande sobre como democratizar os meios de comunicação no Brasil, porque eles eram muito concentrados na mão de poucas famílias, poucas pessoas, poucos pontos de vista. Uma parte disso se resolve com a internet. Muitas vozes são incluídas, e esse é o lado positivo. O outro lado dessa moeda é que a gente passa a ter um problema de confiabilidade na informação e de fragmentação das fontes de informação das pessoas. Então, como você falou, tem uma parte do problema da desinformação hoje que não é apenas sobre a veracidade ou a relação entre informação e fato, mas é uma relação entre as pessoas, as suas crenças e as suas posições políticas, e como esses posicionamentos políticos são alimentados por fontes de informação que são muito diferentes. Eu poderia mencionar aqui inúmeras pesquisas e, enfim, números e porcentagens. Como eu não tenho 40 minutos, eu vou só deixar um spoiler aqui, que a gente já tem muitos indícios de que, quando você pega públicos com posições diferentes, posições políticas, antagônicas, e você analisa as fontes de informação que essas pessoas usam ou citam no ambiente digital, a coincidência entre esses grupos é cada vez menor. As pessoas se informam cada vez mais por fontes mais diferentes. Isso vai criando uma cisão nas visões de mundo, na construção do que é a realidade e de como eu me posiciono frente a essa realidade. E esse é um problema muito grande. Evidentemente, não é um problema que a gente vai resolver com uniformização dos pontos de vista ou das fontes de informação, mas é um problema que a gente precisa enfrentar, de alguma forma, deslocando o debate sobre desinformação apenas do debate sobre conteúdo. O problema da desinformação, das fake news e dos discursos de ódio não está apenas no conteúdo que é divulgado. E, nesse sentido, quando a gente amplia esse debate para um debate sobre como a informação é hoje distribuída, como ela é consumida e como ela circula, aí a inteligência artificial tem um papel absolutamente central. A gente tem pesquisas recentes que mostram, por exemplo, que os mecanismos de busca são fontes essenciais para as pessoas buscarem informação, seja informação política, sejam quaisquer outras. A gente está passando por uma mudança extremamente grande do que são esses mecanismos de busca. Eles estão deixando de ser lugares de passagem, onde você encontra uma lista de caminhos possíveis que você pode seguir, e eles estão passando a ser lugares de chegada. Portanto, as informações que estão sendo oferecidas nesses ambientes estão sendo organizadas e oferecidas a partir de uma outra lógica. Isso também está acontecendo nos aplicativos de mensageria, todo mundo deve ter visto nos seus WhatsApps as ofertas de informação por inteligência artificial. Isso também está acontecendo no TikTok, que é hoje uma grande fonte de informação para a população mais jovem, e em vários outros ambientes. Então, pensar na dinâmica da oferta e da promoção da informação de qualidade e do combate à desinformação, não apenas como uma questão de conteúdo, mas também como uma questão de organização e distribuição de fluxos, me parece absolutamente central. E, nesse sentido, a gente tem um grande desafio regulatório, porque regular é uma regulação que diz respeito a determinados modelos de negócio de empresas que não estão sediadas no Brasil, estão sediadas fora. Evidentemente, felizmente, temos episódios recentes que mostram que, em algum nível, elas ainda têm que obedecer à legislação nacional, ainda que a gente possa discutir como essas decisões estão sendo tomadas, mas existe uma distância muito grande entre os países como o Brasil, os países do sul global, e essas empresas, não apenas fisicamente, mas também imaginariamente. A relação que elas têm com as realidades locais é muito distante. E isso coloca uma barreira a mais em como a gente pode avançar nesse debate.
Obrigada, Nina. Where, if we're thinking about power in relations, and also we listened from Sanjay about our responsibilities towards specific groups. You mentioned that as well, and although I fully agree with that, and I think that we all could say that we agree with that, are we actually capable of guaranteeing that? And what are the dangers that we say that, but we're not capable of actually guaranteeing? And I would also like to ask you, is there a space for resistance in the context that we're discussing here?
Okay, thank you. That is a tough question, but I'm very glad that this is the panel I'm talking with, because I'm learning a lot just from what you're saying. If you allow me, I think it's time to do a small history of technology and its impact on society. And I think Sanjay really sparked that when he said that we've lost the arc multiple times in amplifying the benefits of technology. I would reverse it and say we have also lost the arc of resisting the harms that those technologies created. And one of the primary reasons we did this, because we bought into the Silicon Valley idea of digital transformation, where they basically said, break everything, ask for forgiveness later. Right? And that has been the primary motivation by which technology development happens. Investment happens in technology, precisely that. Anybody who watches Shark Tank recognizes this. We valorize disruption and innovation and brokenness and breaking. But as my friend Sarah Sharma writes in a wonderful manifesto for the broken people, she says when technologies break, they break people. And we never asked what are these technologies breaking and who are they breaking. It's time with yet another emerging technology paradigm to say who are being broken for AI to actually succeed. And this is why care becomes important. So when we think about regulation, when we think about oversight, mitigation, or transparency, I'm not saying let's not do that work. That is a long-term work which is needed and will continue to be funded. But when you think about the care and who will care for the broken people, we perhaps need to start realizing that we have bought into the idea that it's okay for technologies to break people, and once they were broken, we will then go and give them care. It's not that there is not enough work being done on digital care. In fact, paradoxically, in the history of digital rights management, the highest amount of investment in digital care globally has happened between 2019 and 2023, largely, of course, also due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, which forced so many of us into digitalization, right? So it's not that there is a lack of care, it's the positionality of care. If we buy into the idea that it's okay to break everything and then ask for forgiveness, what you are essentially saying is that we naturalize post-harm care. We are naturalizing and accepting that if you are a non-conforming person, if you are a dissident, if you are a woman, if you belong to LGBTQIA groups, if you're doing climate activism, it's okay for you to be harmed. And once you are harmed, we will come and say, well, here is a little bit of care. Here are some resources, here is some verification, here are some different laws, here is regulation, and so on. So if there is one way by which I think the philanthropy sector, and along with that the civil society sector, can move things, it's to recognize that we have positioned digital care as the last line of redress for the people who are broken. And what we really need is for digital care to be the first line of defense to stop those people from being broken. It's exhausting. And I don't want to center my emotional stage when talking about people who are suffering, but it's exhausting to see generations of people and activists on the grounds being burnt out because we have said it's okay for technologies to break them, and then we will try and repair them. And I think this is a fundamental shift which needs to be taken, and this is where resistance for me is going to be. It's an incredibly scary shift for anybody who wants to figure out how their money is going to be spent. Because we are basically asking you to imagine the harm that is going to happen and make sure that it doesn't come to it. I say this at the cost of diminishing my own status as a researcher who produces evidence and data and models. Do not trust us. Our research methods are about describing the condition of brokenness. What you need to fund is possibilities of repairing those who are being broken. Evidence-based research is very important for policy, but policy is post-harm. There is very little policy which builds on anticipatory harms which are coming forward. And this requires a whole community of researchers, of funders, of civil society actors to say, we need to imagine the futures that we dread, and then we need to make interventions so that those futures do not happen. But if we do not invest in imagining those futures of harm, 5 years down the line, I will come back to Sao Paulo and I will show you all over again how many people have been hurt by these technologies that we put our faith in. And we will talk about, oh my God, that's so bad. Oh, we missed the mark on it again. Yes, we did. And so if we don't invest in speculation, into narratives, into arts and cultures which show us the possibility of what has to happen, if you do not articulate what are the kinds of dangers that are going to be experienced by those who are the most vulnerable, then there is no resistance. Because a revolution is not of those who can dance at it. A revolution is for those who have no other choice but to march in it. And I think that's where power and resistance has to be recalibrated.
Thank you very much. Muito obrigada a vocês três. Eu queria agradecer imensamente aos três. Queria agradecer imensamente aos três panelistas por terem dividido com a gente tanto conhecimento, tanta inspiração. Eu acho que a gente está falando de um tema que está longe de ser simples, mas que, ao mesmo tempo, se conecta com as coisas mais cotidianas da nossa vida. Obrigada por vocês terem feito uma conversa que é tão interessante, tão importante, tão urgente e que deixa a gente terminar esse dia, como o Nishant usou a palavra hope, com tanta esperança, acreditando que sim, a agência está nas nossas mãos. Muito obrigada.